In this episode, I talk with Christie Hwang Jordan about listening to your body and heart as the single most powerful method for healing and transformation. Welcome to the Flower Lounge, a place for conversations with wildly creative people and a little plant-loving wisdom to help you experience life in full bloom. I'm Katie Hess, flower alchemist and founder of LOTUSWEI, and I believe in a world where we're all living at our personal edge. Welcome to the Flowerlounge Podcast. I am sitting with Christie Jordan, who started practicing acupuncture and oriental medicine in 1999. That's the year that I studied flower essences. She started with the passion to assist people through health crises that often happened with life transitions. Before long, her little word-of-mouth practice blossomed into a full business, and Source Healing opened its current location in the River North neighborhood of downtown Chicago. Christie realized her passion for the healing arts after she watched her dad move through his healing process when he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And she wanted to help people get in touch with their own body's ability to heal and help teach them to become more aware of the effects of emotional and spiritual disharmony on the physical body and take action before it got to a point of no return. So Christie made it a goal to not only heal her own heart, but to educate her clients for lifelong empowerment and health and well-being. So that is the official story. Christie, thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Katie.
Yeah, so I was going back in old emails and seeing stuff from 2014, I think even further back with your name on it. How did we originally connect? Because you guys have been carrying our flower essences for a long time, right?
Yeah, I meet up pretty regularly with another healer friend of mine, Kim Sperling, and she practices in Atlanta. And every time we went to a seminar together, she would have these sprays, and then I'd grab them and I'd spray myself and I'd put them on me, and I could just feel how magical they were. I mean, the quality, it was just magical, alchemical stuff. So I immediately went back to my business and we're having these here. And we started. So based on Kim's suggestions and how she used them, we started using them in our treatment room. So every single treatment and every single patient gets the sprays in the room based on what we intuit that they need. So it's definitely a part of our practice.
Wow. So it all goes back to Kim.
Yeah, it goes back to my friend Kim. She's a magical being. So
cool. Well, so we do this little exercise before every episode where you close your eyes and go back to a time in your childhood when you played around flowers and plants or trees, and just think about what you were up to and whatever memory that's arising and who you're with, and see if you can identify a favorite flower or botanical. And then reflect on the 3 words you would use to describe its personality. And then whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and share everything you're thinking of.
Well, some of my earliest memories, I used to run around. I don't know if there was a little wooded area in my backyard or in our neighborhood, but I used to run around in the woods a lot. And that was a very peaceful space for me. Flowers were amazing. The one flower that really came to mind was, I don't even know what it's called, but it's sort of like a purplish pink flower. And when you pull on them, on the end, you can suck out the nectar on the very bottom. Do you know which one I'm talking about? I don't know what it's called, but they grew wild. They must have been some sort of a weed, and you can suck out the nectar if you just pulled on the top. And as a child, that was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Did you grow up around Chicago?
I was born in Seoul, Korea.
Oh, you were born in Korea?
Yeah, I was. And I came here when I was 3 or 4, I think around 3, right when I turned 4. And grew up in Indianapolis, Seattle, and the Chicagoland area.
Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah, we used to do that with wild columbine, I think. But that was around like the alleyways of Minneapolis. No, it sounds kind of like honeysuckle too. That's so fun. So if you were to describe that particular flower's personality in 3 words, how would you describe it?
Sweet, abundant, and playful.
So nice. Okay, because what we find is the way that you describe your childhood flower is the way that you bring your gifts into the world. So sweet, abundant, and playful. Does that sound like you?
At times, yes. Not all the time, but at times.
Awesome. So oh my gosh, you've had your practice for like a long time, like I have. We're
Yes.
on pretty much like the same kind of business trajectory,
Yes.
timing
Yes.
wise at least. What's top of mind for you? Like, there's just like almost 2 decades of learning there.
I think the top of mind for me in terms of the healing practice is that I think as far as patterns go, that most people can really learn in terms of their own healing process from trusting themselves and their own hearts and their own truths first when it comes to any medical treatment, when it comes to anything that they're working through physically, because most what brings people in is some sort of a physical ailment. And by the time it reaches the physical level, there's been a lot of energetic disharmonies in the body within the Chinese medicine model, but just really emotionally and spiritually, and taking a look at how you relate to the world around you. And then what they do is clients might go to their doctor, and their doctor, and there's nothing bad or wrong about that, but they'll listen to the very first thing that they hear as opposed to really taking information from many sources and make a really sound decision based on what feels right for them. And so, yeah, that's the one thing I realized having done this for the longest time is really teaching people to trust what they know about their bodies first, and to know, yes, and trust what they know in their heart is the truth for them.
You know what's so interesting? What's popping in my head is this really silly thing where, so we have this new building and, we need work done on the building. There's always something that needs to be improved. And when we call for contractors or subcontractors, we like never go with the first person who gives us the quote, right? Like
Yes.
you get at least 3 quotes. You hear all the different stories because, what one guy says might be totally off from what someone else says.
Yes.
And you might do the same for like a car mechanic, maybe, unless you found somebody
Yes.
you trusted. Like, it's kind of baffling that we don't have this same level of, I don't know, like discovery or sort of like getting to the bottom of things with our own physical bodies, right?
It's true. And
Like
this
we
is
need a
the,
team, like
yeah.
ask 5 people, 6,
Yes.
10 people.
And try different modalities, because what works for another might not work for you, and what works for you might not work for another. And so that discovery is very important. And just like you were saying with the car mechanic, I feel like in terms of self-care and in terms of how we treat our bodies, it's like people tend to treat their cars better than they treat their bodies. Outside of their annuals or blood work, the actual idea of self-care, we would give our car an oil change. We would give our car brake alignments. We would do things to our car for some sort of regular maintenance. But the idea of maintenance in the body, is not something that we're taught. And so I think a lot of people, are taught that only when they move through some sort of a health or a physical crisis. And so, yeah, it's in the same vein, not only ask for different, opinions, you can definitely move into a different idea of how to work with your body.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, so many things come to mind when you say maintenance. What
Yes.
What are your personal favorite modalities for maintenance?
Okay, so when I'm doing well, that means when I'm in my flow, that means when I'm in my peace, that means, that the weight of the world isn't on my shoulders. I get a chiropractic adjustment once a month. I get an acupuncture treatment at least once a month. I get some sort of body work or massage once a month, and that includes some sort of energy. I like to exercise on a semi-regular basis. I give myself at least 5 or 10 minutes in the morning by myself with my tea, just to ground myself and listen. So, just like in business, how people look at weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, I like to look at myself in the same way and my self-care in the same way. So I like to look at myself on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and a quarterly basis. And so I'll take a look at my calendar, and I don't know if this is just the Virgo in me, but I'll take a look at my calendar for a whole year ahead of time. And I actually color code time for myself, what it takes to take care of myself, what feeds my spirit, what feeds my body. And this is separate from my business, separate from my children, separate from my friends and family. This is just what feeds me. And I need to make sure that through the years, I have something peppered in. So daily, it might be that 5-10 minutes with the tea for myself. Weekly, it might be 3 hours where it's complete productive, unproductive time. And I give myself permission to just have that, because there's no guilt involved when it's productive, unproductive time. And then on a monthly basis, I do something. Well, I do all that body care. And
wait, hold on. Back up. What's productive, unproductive time?
Productive, unproductive time. Oh, it's my favorite.
What is this?
Okay. So this is when you have, it's literal permission for me to be entirely, quote unquote, unproductive. And so for someone who is constantly minding my time and trying to get as much done as I possibly can, fit in as much as I can in the time that I have, when I have that time, it's permission to do absolutely nothing but be. And you could call it being time, but I like to call it productive, unproductive time because I find it incredibly productive. I notice that the more I give myself that time and the larger chunks of time I give myself to do that, I'm actually more productive in that time than not, because all of a sudden the pressure is off. And when you are being productively unproductive, all of a sudden there's stillness. And when the pressure is off, all of a sudden I want to get something done, not because I have to, but because it's something to do. And usually what I want to get done is something I want, that my heart desires to get done. Because what I do for a living, what I do in my personal life, I geek about, so, it's not like I have to watch that video. It's fun then, because there's no pressure and there's no guilt involved.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah. It's like the being time just sort of dissolves away all the excess stuff so that you can really get inspired by those singular laser focus priorities that are going to make the most impact, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I love that you talk about when you're peaceful in your flow, when everything's going well. So I'm guessing that by the list you said chiro once a month, acupuncture once a month, massage once a month, exercising, daily tea time. And when you said this is when things are going well. So if things are not going well, let's say shit hits the fan in your emotional life, or something pops up, or
transitions happen.
Transitions happen,
and transitions are there. And when transitions happen, this is when people tighten up the most. This is when the physical symptoms happen. This is when your monkey mind or your mind just goes crazy. Your mind takes over, and then it affects your emotional health. And when that happens during those times, I take care of myself even more. That means I might see someone once a week pretty regularly and pepper it in with even more, acupuncture as much as I can. I'll see a healer. I'll do whatever it takes to ease my flow so I can let go, because we hold in our bodies. And if we can let go in our bodies, it's easier to let go in our lives to the transitions we're in.
Mm-hmm. I think for people who have really made a dedication to awakening, devoting their lives to their own personal awakening as the means to awaken the world, I think that stuff comes up. It's just normal, right? Because you're asking for it. It's bring it on. Show me where I need to adjust, right? On this path toward awakening our inner wisdom and our full potential. In order to do that, we have to look at the little sticky areas, right? The blocks and the little...
We do. And even if we don't want to look at those blocks, they'll come up, because everything is up to heal and everything's up for awareness, so that you can then choose to move forward with whatever wisdom you glean from it. So I feel that any crises that anyone's in, or any resistance that anyone's in, which is why someone would be coming in to see us, right? Because they have a physical symptom. You can definitely evolve and transcend and heal.
It's like, how do we shift all of our mindset, our collective mindset around that kind of, you call it maintenance care, maintenance, because I find that in having this building and having this we have like a TCM clinic downstairs with flower essences. We have an acupuncturist here in Phoenix, a woman that does Chinese herbal preparations, massage therapists. And it's interesting because I feel like, I've gone through this process of like, well, I need to experience all the different kinds of work that they do in order to be able to express to other people what it is. What does it feel like? Like, cupping and gua sha and moxa and different types of massage. Like, I need to be able to know what it's like, which means I have to get treated. And there has been this interesting process of like, oh gosh, like, is it too much? Like, it's so indulgent. And it's like, how do we reframe that patterning of, what is that? It's like having someone, is it support? Is it like, I should be able to do it on my spot all by myself? Or like, what is so wrong about getting a massage every month or getting acupuncture every week? Or did you see that in your clients? Like that kind of reluctance to like give themselves the gift of health and wellness and evolution?
Yeah, there's definitely a resistance for sure, because I feel like we're conditioned in this society that, to medical care, because Chinese medicine falls under that. It's done with your doctors, with insurance, and you don't want to pay for it because there's insurance. So the value of self-care really, there's a mindset that says if insurance doesn't cover it, then I'm not going. And ultimately, I feel like self-care has something to do with you as a spirit and your relationship to your body. And I feel that most people they're still developing, but let's say that. And it took me years to develop it, and I'm still developing it, and I'm still learning how to listen to my body. I'm still learning how to be kind to myself, and I'm still learning how to be worthy of treatments, but it keeps reinforcing my, what I need for myself when I do get anything that my body needs. When I listen to my body, a lot of people don't relate to their bodies like they relate to their children, their friends, their loved ones. Their relationships with their bodies are so skewed so that they feel like they can force their body into one way of being or another. And ultimately, it's a harmonization with this thing called your body. And so a lot of times, the first thing that we have to do is teach people how to relate with their bodies. And all of a sudden, when you can see yourself relating to your body like you would to your own sister or your own child or to your best friend, it becomes something else. All of a sudden, there's a kindness that comes in, and it starts a level of healing with people that we feel like is the first start. So you wouldn't hesitate to give your child something that they needed, when you knew, even if it wasn't in the books, that they could use this cranial sacral for a headache or something like that. And you wouldn't hesitate to pay for that. But again, when it comes to yourself, people have to learn differently. And it's not because anyone or anything should need us, because I think any true healing modality really empowers people to use us as a tool. And there's no need here. There's no dependency here. This is just a tool that you use, like you would use a hammer for this and a screwdriver for that. Acupuncture is a tool, massage is a tool, meditation is a tool. There's so many different tools that when you're tuned in with your body, which means you're relating to your body in the kindest of ways, you can give her or him.
It's kind of like a mirror, right?
Yes.
Like practitioners can act, or modalities can act as mirrors so that we can better get to know our bodies.
Yes. Yes.
So it's so interesting that we're having this conversation right now, because say like 4 or 5 days ago, I was working in my back, just like, flipped out of place, like the pelvis twisted, hips twisted, everything, nerve pinch. And it's so funny because like now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I know the actual cause. I know the emotional cause. I know the exact moment that started this little snowball. and then just like having pain for days and kind of working with that, and then seeing like, is it movement that it needs? Is it stretching that it needs? Is it this that it needs? And I ended up having this conversation with my friend Robin yesterday, and she was like, you're such a soft person. Like, what would it take for you to offer some of that softness to yourself? It was like, because you get to a point where you're so frustrated, you're like, dang, like, why is this not going the way and then it's almost like funny how you are, when you're so in your pattern response, that you don't see how hard you can be on yourself. And it's like, so we have this emotional trigger, and then that leads to like a certain pattern in the body or a response. And then we like clamp down on ourselves even more. Like, I should be beyond this. I should, like, why can't, and she gave me this really interesting method. And she talked about using the breath as compassion, and like breathing, like every time you inhale, like breathing compassion into the parts that are hurting, in your body. And I was sitting outside, and I thought, okay, so I'll try this. And then like this beautiful breeze came up, and I could feel like the support of Mother Earth. And it was like, oh, wow. Like, if I couldn't generate that compassion for myself in this moment, even like the earth is like there. So I could like visualize this like vast compassion, and, breathing that into my body. In like an hour, I had relaxed all my muscles, and then did a couple like twists and turns, and like 15 different cracks later, it was like completely aligned.
I
was
believe.
Like, what? And this has been kind of a chronic issue that I've had for a really long time, and have had like certain practitioners who have helped, been able to help me sort of unwind from it. And there have been times where I'm like, I know I can do this myself if I just like stretch my way through it. But it's so funny that like some sort of medicine that I have and can offer to others was actually like the key to this particular issue. But like, I couldn't see that without having somebody reflect that back to me. Can you talk about the role of softness and self-compassion in the process of healing anything, emotional, physical, anything that you've seen either in your personal life or at work?
Well, the first thing that comes to me when I think about softness and compassion is, like I said, the relationship with our bodies. Until we move into a level of compassion, like your example, our bodies don't respond. It's constant. Our bodies are constantly messaging to us, and it's constantly talking to us. And I think when they give us symptoms, it's them really just giving us a message. And when we can listen to that, like we would listen to a child. And the reason why I say child is because I feel like a lot of people come in, and myself included, I've done a lot of work around this, where a child in them, everyone gets stuck at a certain age or several ages as a child. And I can see them. I can see these children come up in these sessions. And there's a lot of, we tend to not see that, but then we tend to be mean to ourselves around certain situations, be really mean and really hard. But when we can see that child, and we can see them as a child, and we can see ourselves as a child that is stuck at a certain space and place, responding to certain situations, there's a level of softness that can come in if you can connect to that. So that's the first thing. And I feel like in addition to that, another level of softness that we can really be mindful of in regards to ourselves and our own bodies is what our minds think about our bodies and what we're going through in our lives and ourselves. Because I feel like our minds, when we can separate ourselves from our minds, and I feel that, that's why a lot of people go towards meditation, but when meditation isn't something that's, something that we teach so that people can do this more often. But I feel like when we can really separate ourselves from our minds and not listen to what our mental body is telling us, we can separate, we can choose to listen to that or not. And I feel that the chemistry, that anything we think consciously or unconsciously can affect our physical body so much that can create symptoms over and over again. I can create a symptom when I'm unconscious about certain thoughts, and I have to be so conscious. I have to be conscious about it every day, every moment. And then when I let things slip, my body is the first thing to tell me. She goes, Christie, your neck and shoulders are tight. What are you thinking? And I'm like, my mind is saying, yip, you suck. She just tells me all this stuff about myself. And then the minute I can separate myself and go, you know what? I don't have to listen to that, because what she's saying is not necessarily the truth that's in my heart. And the minute you can separate yourself from that, it makes all the difference in the world, because I can send different chemistry to my body. And that different chemistry is the softness and the gentleness and being kind to ourselves that wants to come in if you can separate yourself from what your mind is constantly feeding you. And so, yeah, two ways: tuning into the body and being aware of what your mind is telling you about yourself. That can make all the difference in how, you can be soft on yourself. And just the choice to be soft on yourself, like you would to a child, if you would be to a child.
Right, because I think when things come up, I think sometimes as adults, we think there has to be a logical reasoning around it. Like, we have to make sense of this somehow, right? We have to get
Yes.
to the bottom of this or figure this out. And honestly, like, what if there's like a significant percentage of the patients that come to see you who have roots in past life stuff?
Yes.
Like,
Right.
well, what are we going to do about that, right? Like, I can't remember really. Might get a flash. Like, what are you going to do about that? There's nothing to do other than just like hold that with compassion and tenderness, because it was a long time ago, right?
Yeah. And it's not what exists in the here and now, and then represencing you to what is in the here and now is the practice.
So what do you see as some of the most common, like what are most of your patients coming in these days for, and how has that changed over the years?
These days, pain, three things: pain, anything stress related, and women's health. Those are our main things that people come in for. We, as a clinic, we feel that the spirit and we do spirit medicine, and I feel like Chinese medicine is really amenable to that, because the whole idea of the spirit living in the heart has us focus on that. The whole idea that emotions are integrated into the physical body makes it really easy to do. So it doesn't matter what someone's coming in for, we're always looking on the spiritual emotional level so that we can get to the root, not just in a traditional Chinese medicine root way, but just in terms of energy of what's going on, and then giving them tools on how to shift the chemistry of their body. I feel like that's the most important thing. The tools that I use every day, all the time, that help me. In terms of
examples,
breath, like you were just saying, breathing compassion, something as simple as very conscious breath can make all the difference in the world, as it did for your back. We see that happening all the time. Mindfulness, where, people are aware of their monkey mind. They're able to identify it and shift out just from being able to identify it, as opposed to being inundated with the chemistry of something that they think is them when it's not, so, and that's usually all the negative thinking and all that self-hate, self-blame, all that stuff, shame, you name it. So those are the tools we give. And we feel like, and we also make them aware of like what tools to use when, even with our services. I mean, there's so many things that they could do, outside of us, and we're happy to let them know what those are. So,
what's your favorite part about your practice?
Oh gosh, I would say entering a really deep sacred space with each client, each patient is it really feeds my heart and my spirit to be able to enter a space with people, because I feel that anytime people move into a healing space and they really open up their awareness, it's just confirmation for me that I can do the same all the time, every day, and so it keeps it real for me, the what awareness and consciousness is, and the body's ability to heal. It makes me really believe that people can.
What are some of the most interesting cases or stories or something you've seen come through your door, or, some kind of healing that you've seen take place? Or
Wow, I have a lot of those. So, I mean, I can go into so many different stories. I think most recently, we see a lot of cases where, people come in after seeing a million different doctors. They can't figure out what's going on. The doctors can't figure out what's going on. And just recently, I saw this young lady who was going through a very intense detox reaction, but it was also her body chemistry was just swirling down, and her body was shutting down. She couldn't eat. And there was a point where I'm like, you might have to go to the emergency room. And I think she even did. But what helped her just recently was I heard in my head that she needs to shut down her mind, because her mind was firing at such a rapid speed. It was really it was keeping her body from moving in a direction where her body could move into a healing space. So when I got down to the nitty gritty with her with what and how she needed to do it, she said to me, wow, I'm even noticing how my thoughts will just immediately take me into a space, and then I'll move into an emotional swirl and her body will just flip out. And so she came to me about 4 days later after that treatment and said, you know what? I could tell she was so much better. She goes, Christie, this is so much work, but I feel so much better. And that just in and of itself is an example how mental energy can affect the physical energy and the physical body. And so she was in a really bad physical space, and she is on the mend because she is on top of what she's been trained for. She's done this meditation thing before, but having to do it because her body is not having it anymore on a really regular, intentional basis, pretty much all the time, has been a lifesaver for her. So I'm hoping that she can keep it up.
what do you see the potential of flower essences in traditional Chinese medicine kind of setting?
Gosh. So I love flower essences, and I love the LOTUSWEI products. As I told you, it's in our treatments, and because it's vibrational. And I feel that when you use the needles, the needles really they're like little antennas into tiny little portal points in your body, all over your body. And that's the way I see it. They're these beautiful, like little antennas into portal points into your body. So that in and of itself is really vibrational, and so you deal with the essences, which are very vibrational. And these flowers come in, and it's the elements. They come in with a specific purpose for being, and they know exactly what they're here to do, and you integrate it with the essences. It becomes a part of a whole experience. How you smell it, when you're in a certain headspace in the treatment room, your head's clear, you're in your breath, you got all these little needles going on, and you have these beautiful alchemical scents through those products just coming right through your nose. It takes you to another space in your body, and a very peaceful space. So I think flower essences are amazing. We do use not only those products, but flower essences in our practice, especially when we know that people need a consciousness shift, because there's, I think, no greater tool, honestly, than flower essences for consciousness shifts.
Wow, love it. And speaking of consciousness shifts, can you talk a little bit about like the concept of heal thyself, and how, because I always believe, like in business, for example, my business can only be as evolved as I am. When I was working with clients one-on-one, it was like I would go through a certain issue in my life, and then I'd have like 20 clients going through the same issue once I had handled it. Can you talk a little bit about the heal thyself concept, and just how you've seen that play out in your life?
Yes. So I think earlier on in my life, I saw a lot of fertility clients, probably because at that point I was very infertile. But I got really, really good at working with infertility and natural fertility, because on some level, I knew on some level my body was so out of balance. And I didn't have a period. I had issues. But when I realized that I needed to correct those issues, I took the time, because I was also on this side of the fence where I was able to see how the fertility journey can take years of your life unless you really start living them, and know that it's about balancing your body and not forcing things to happen. So eventually I got my body in balance, and I wasn't necessarily trying, but I got pregnant twice, and now I have two amazing children, age 14 and 9. And so, now I see more people like really moving into another level of consciousness, awakening and opening. It's pretty awesome. Like that girl I was telling you about, she's an amazing, beautiful light being. And I'm just so happy that, it gives me an idea that, I can constantly keep working on my awareness in my thoughts. So yeah, and heal themselves or thyself. I feel that everyone has the capacity to heal themselves for sure. And that's, I feel that if we don't ground that idea in people, we're not doing our job.
Mm-hmm. And what percentage of people do you feel like come to see you with like a really clear physical, my toe hurts, versus more emotional, mental?
A lot of people with pain will come in with the physical, my toe hurts, my knee hurts, my low back hurts. And the great majority of those people, we will be able to see what's going on underneath them. Underneath that, by just asking by doing a very thorough intake. We notice that a lot of times symptoms occur after situations. So when people say this started in 2016, the first question I ask is any major life changes, any losses, any traumas, blah, 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 any transitions. It could just be a simple transition that you're not even aware that it affected you. In January of 2016, if it started in February, they're like, oh yeah, my mother died and blah, blah, blah. And then you sit there and they're like, wow, I didn't even put that together. So what it does is it really brings into their consciousness that maybe that some of this emotional stuff that you're still processing is stuck in that area of your body. So it's always an eye-opening thing. And we feel like that level of healing for us is what makes us geek. That's what we geek out about. That's what we love to do. If people are just coming in for a toe pain or just coming in for back pain, there are other practitioners that can treat that for sure. I mean, we like to go a lot deeper. It's more fun for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it seems so like long-term more preventative. My flower essence teacher used to say that, in the world of energy medicine, the body was like the screen and the energetics or mind state was like the projector. And so, like you said, for something to manifest in your physical body, you had to go travel through all these layers of energy, thoughts, emotions, and still we weren't paying attention. And so finally, like last step, the body giving us the red flag of, here's something to look at. And so it only makes sense that if you work with those other areas, you're not only treating the toe pain or whatever, but you're like removing the cause for that later in life over and over, right?
Yes. Yes.
What are some of the most common, I know you mentioned like self-hatred and self-blame and shame. What do you see as the most common roots, whether it's in a Western language or traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, the root cause of most of people's issues today?
I feel that the root cause of most of people's issues today is a lack of awareness of themselves and their body, and maybe even a disconnect from their own heart and their own spirit. In Chinese medicine, they say the spirit resides in the heart. And when people are there's so many reasons why, and me included, there have been times where my heart's been so closed off. You do that when you're scared. Well, you do that when, I've done it when I've been sad or traumatized, or, people do it for all sorts of reasons. The energy of the heart closes off. And once the energy of the heart closes off, it starts closing off energies above and below you. And so that disconnect can really wreak havoc physically in your body over time. So that would be one of the biggest root causes. And that is another reason why that a lot of times within the first treatment, we usually don't say it because we don't want to freak people out, and I'm sure many acupuncturists and body workers experience this. There's always we call it an uncorking, but it's an emotional release that happens with the first treatment, because what happens is if they allow it, something moves from the heart. So a lot of times it could be deep-seated grief about a parent passing that they didn't even know that they were carrying. And, all of a sudden life becomes so much lighter. And so that could be a big root cause of a lot of people not being able to heal. But what's really cool about the physical body and energy is energy wants to move. Energy wants to move, and it doesn't take that much to help move energy. And sometimes we just can't do it ourselves for whatever reason, because I know when I can't, it's because I'm too scared, or and that's just the truth. All right, so that's why I have a team of people around me, because I do want to heal.
It's like that moment when you get the needles in or some sort of work done, and then the practitioner leaves the room and you get like tears spilling down. Like, where is that coming from?
Yes. And a lot of people go, why am I crying? Like, just don't think about it. Don't try to understand it. It's just energy that has to move.
Mm-hmm. It's such a beautiful process.
It is. It really, really is.
Last question. What's sort of like, I know you're working with a modality that's like at least 3,000 years old, tested and true over and over and over. What do you see as sort of like the future potential of either Chinese medicine or your work or the way that you're applying it? What's kind of like out there on the edge for you?
I feel that, in a ideal medical community, you'd have the best of the Western and Eastern integrated. I would think that if we were to integrate Eastern medicine into things, not to just see it as a clinical, the sterile Western medicine, not to make it a Western medicine thing, but to really integrate the real Taoist lineage of like the yin and the yang and the balance of the elements, and to understand that everything is energy. If we can integrate the truest essence of Chinese medicine into the Western model, it fills up a lot of the gray areas in Western medicine that Western medicine can't do, but Eastern medicine can. And so the integration of both, the best of both, and would be my vision of how medicine is done in the future.
And if you had any words of advice or something you often find yourself sharing with your patients, or something that just sort of organically springs into your heart right now, what would you share?
I would share that the only truth that exists for you is in your own heart. It comes from your own heart. The only truth is the truth that comes from your own heart. That's what I would say. And to trust that.
And that would mean we have to make time to listen to it.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And that can be a process, right? That could be a healing process.
The 5-10 minutes of tea every morning.
Yes.
I love that. Anything else you want to add? Anything I didn't ask you?
No, I think that was good. It was so lovely. I'm so glad to connect with you finally.
I know.
We were meant to so many times, and it's now.
Yeah, so if anyone is in Chicago, in the Chicago area, definitely go to sourcehealing.com and come in and check out Christie's work in Chicago. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to The Flower Lounge. I'm Katie Hess, and we'll be releasing a new podcast every Wednesday. If you like what you heard, or you know someone who might be touched by our conversation, share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe. To find out what your favorite flowers mean about you, take the quiz at LOTUSWEI.com.